Fugitive collapses in prison yard, but a doctor discovers something on her body that sends everyone into a panic. Comment and rate my story from 0 to 10. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The afternoon sun beat mercilessly on the concrete yard of the massive state penitentiary when the fragile-looking woman, marked by suffering, crumpled onto the hot ground. Her dark hair stuck to her sweaty face, and the loose-fitting prison uniform couldn't completely hide the changes in her body she had tried to conceal for so long. The shouts of the guards echoed through the grey walls as they rushed towards her, but she had already lost consciousness. Dr. Ethan Hayes, the 30-year-old physician, was urgently summoned. His firm steps echoed through the cold hallways of the infirmary as he adjusted his white coat. With a striking appearance and piercing gaze, he had grown accustomed to emergencies in the prison system, but something about this urgent call piqued his interest. When he arrived, he found the woman lying on an improvised stretcher, breathing irregularly, her skin as pale as paper. His experienced fingers searched for her pulse while quickly examining her vital signs. That's when he discovered something that would change everything. She was 6 months pregnant. The rounded shape of her belly, carefully concealed under the baggy clothes, revealed itself unmistakably under his trained hands. The discovery left him perplexed. How was it possible that no one had noticed? The news spread quickly among the penitentiary staff, causing an unprecedented commotion. Whispers ran through the corridors as guards and administrators gathered in small groups, discussing in hushed tones. The woman had been incarcerated for 8 months for a crime she had always denied committing, which made the pregnancy even more intriguing and disturbing. When she regained consciousness in the infirmary, her eyes filled with tears as she realized her secret had been discovered. Dr. Hayes, observing her reaction of panic and despair, felt something stir within him. There was a vulnerability in those dark eyes that went beyond the fear of an ordinary prisoner. It was the gaze of someone who had lost all hope long before arriving there. During the following days, he couldn't get the woman out of his thoughts. Something about her story didn't make sense. Intrigued, he began to discreetly investigate her past, consulting medical records and court documents. What he discovered left him deeply disturbed. She had been accused of stealing a significant amount of money from the family business, a small fabric store that had belonged to her family for generations, Threads and Stitches, in downtown Portland, Oregon. But the evidence seemed flimsy, based mainly on the testimony of her older sister, who had taken over the business after the arrest. Dr. Hayes found inconsistencies in the statements and gaps in the investigation that raised his suspicions. During a routine medical exam, he noticed old signs of violence on her body, scars on her ribs, signs of poorly healed fractures on her left wrist, marks that told a silent story of suffering. When questioned about the injuries, she looked away, her lips trembling slightly before mumbling that she had fallen down the stairs years ago. The woman, initially suspicious of any gesture of kindness, gradually began to open up to Dr. Hayes. During the weekly checkups, small fragments of her story emerged like pieces of a complex puzzle. She revealed that she had fled an abusive relationship a few months before being arrested, but was never able to prove her innocence because she had nowhere to go, nor the resources to hire a competent attorney. Her words were filled with deep sadness as she spoke about her ex-partner, a violent man who controlled every aspect of her life. She had gathered the courage to leave him when she found out she was pregnant, fearing for the future of the child. But her freedom was short-lived. Weeks after her escape, she was accused of the theft and arrested, seeing her dreams of a fresh start shatter between the cold bars of her cell. Dr. Hayes began visiting the infirmary more frequently, always finding medical reasons to check on her condition. Each conversation revealed new, disturbing details. She recounted how her older sister had always been jealous of her closeness to their parents, especially after they inherited the threads and stitches fabric store. The family had built a small nest egg over the years, and the property was worth a considerable sum in the heart of downtown. One afternoon, while organizing patient files, Dr. Hayes made a discovery that made him stop everything he was doing. In the prison visitor logs, he found the name of a powerful man from the region, owner of one of the largest construction companies in the city, known for his investments in commercial properties. Ronald Sterling, Sterling Construction. The name appeared in the lists only once, a few days after the woman's arrest, but the fact that he had visited her specifically raised unsettling questions. When he confronted the woman about this visit, she was visibly shaken. Her hands trembled as she explained that this man was the true father of the child. He had approached her during the final months of her abusive relationship, offering protection and caring when she needed it most. But when he found out about the pregnancy, and she tried to tell him, she was threatened to never reveal the child's paternity. The woman's words echoed in Dr. Hayes's mind as he walked through the prison corridors. The revelation about the powerful real estate mogul had opened an even deeper wound in the already troubled story. During the night, he couldn't sleep, replaying every detail of the conversation, every expression of pain he had seen on her face when she spoke about the threats. The next day, he decided to investigate further. Using his contacts in the medical community, he obtained information about the businessman. The man possessed a considerable fortune built through strategic investments in the stock market and real estate development. His company dominated much of the construction in the metropolitan area, and his net worth reached impressive figures in dollars. During a routine medical consultation, the woman revealed more details about her relationship with the businessman. She had met the man at a moment of extreme vulnerability when she was trying to escape domestic violence. He seemed different, kind, offering financial help and promising a better future. For a few weeks, she believed she had found her salvation. Dr. Hayes noticed how her hands trembled as she recounted the secret encounters in discreet hotels in the city. The businessman always insisted on absolute discretion, explaining that his social position did not allow public relationships with women from less privileged backgrounds. When she became pregnant, the change was radical. The man who had previously shown affection transformed into a threatening and cold figure. Driven by the growing certainty that she was the victim of an injustice, Dr. Hayes began to piece together the puzzle. He discovered that the woman's older sister worked as an administrative secretary at a third-party company that provided services for the businessman's construction company. The coincidence seemed too improbable to be casual. Using his network of professional contacts, he gained access to information about the sister's financial transactions in the months leading up to the arrest. The record showed suspicious deposits into her bank account, amounts that did not match her modest salary. The money had been transferred through a shell company linked to the construction firm. The situation became complicated when Dr. Hayes began to face unexpected pressure in his work environment. The medical director of the penitentiary, a 60-year-old man known for his rigidity and political connections, summoned him to a private meeting. In an authoritarian tone, he suggested that it would be better for everyone if the pregnant prisoner were transferred to another prison far away where she could receive more specialized care. Dr. Hayes understood that powerful forces were trying to silence the woman definitively. He refused to sign the transfer papers, arguing that her medical condition required continuous monitoring and that a move could endanger the lives of both the mother and the baby. His resistance generated growing tensions with the prison administration. During the following examinations, he noted that the woman's health was deteriorating. The emotional stress and the precarious conditions of the prison system were affecting her pregnancy. She showed signs of high blood pressure and fluid retention, symptoms that could develop into serious complications. Dr. Hayes knew he had to act quickly. That's when he discovered forgotten documents in an old infirmary file. Medical records of other prisoners who had gone through similar situations, filed and apparently forgotten by the administration. Among the papers, he found reports that had been altered, forged signatures, and medical reports that did not match the patient's actual conditions. The discovery left him perplexed and furious. He realized that he was facing a scheme much larger than he had imagined, involving not only the wrongful imprisonment of an innocent woman, but an entire network of corruption that extended through the prison system and reached powerful external influences. When he discreetly confronted some colleagues about the documents, he was met with nervous glances and evasive answers. An older, trusted nurse secretly revealed that he had noticed irregularities over the years, but never dared to question them for fear of losing his job. The system was contaminated from its foundations. The woman's sister appeared at the penitentiary on a rainy afternoon, requesting an urgent medical visit. Nervous and agitated, she approached Dr. Hayes with a proposition that shocked him. She offered a substantial amount of money for him to falsify medical reports, claiming that her sister's pregnancy presented complications that would require immediate transfer to a private hospital, out of reach of the justice system. Dr. Hayes pretended to consider the offer while secretly recording the conversation on his cell phone. The sister revealed compromising details about the scheme, mentioning regular payments she received to remain silent and how she had been instructed to frame her own sister for the theft of the threads and stitches store. Categorically refusing the bribe offer, Dr. Hayes stated that he would fulfill his medical oath and protect both the mother and the baby. The sister left the penitentiary visibly upset, making veiled threats about the consequences of his decision. That same night, Dr. Hayes received an anonymous call at his residence. A distorted voice warned him to stop meddling in matters that did not concern him. Otherwise, his medical career could suffer irreparable damage. The threat was clear and direct: silence in exchange for professional security. Realizing that time was running out, he made a courageous decision. He organized all the collected evidence and stored it in a safe place, preparing to deliver it to the appropriate authorities. He knew that this attitude could cost him his job and possibly his career, but he could no longer live with the injustice he witnessed daily. The early morning brought an emergency that would change everything. Dr. Hayes was awakened at 3 a.m. by a desperate call from the penitentiary infirmary. The pregnant woman had started bleeding heavily and was experiencing premature contractions. When he arrived, he found her pale and terrified, holding her belly with both hands while tears streamed down her face. The tests revealed a critical situation: partial placental abruption, a condition that threatened the lives of both the mother and the baby. Dr. Hayes knew she needed to be admitted immediately to a hospital with a suitable surgical center and a neonatal intensive care unit. However, the protocols of the prison system required a series of bureaucratic authorizations that could take days to be processed. Facing resistance from the prison administration, he fought for hours to obtain authorization for admission to a civilian hospital. Phone calls were made, forms were filled out, superiors were contacted, but the bureaucracy proved unforgiving. The medical director of the penitentiary remained inflexible, claiming that there were no funds available for external treatments. During an emergency medical consultation, the woman had a panic attack upon discovering that, even if her innocence were eventually proven, she could lose custody of her child. The social services system had already been activated, and official representatives had visited the penitentiary to assess the situation. The prospect of having the child taken from her arms soon after birth made her despair. It was in this moment of extreme vulnerability that Dr. Hayes made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Faced with the woman's suffering and the growing certainty of her innocence, he proposed marriage, not out of romantic love, but out of genuine compassion and determination to protect her. As her husband, he would have legal rights to represent her and ensure that she received the necessary support during the legal process. The initial proposal was met with disbelief and distrust. The woman questioned his motivations, fearing it was just another form of manipulation. She had learned to distrust gestures of kindness, especially from men in positions of power. Dr. Hayes patiently explained his intentions, showing her the evidence he had collected and his determination to prove her innocence. The news of the impending marriage caused an unprecedented scandal in the small medical and legal community of the region. Co-workers avoided him in the hallways, whispering theories about his real motivations. Some suggested that he had become romantically involved with a prisoner. Others speculated about blackmail or coercion. The social pressure became almost unbearable. The medical director of the penitentiary summoned him to an emergency meeting, threatening to fire him for inappropriate conduct and violation of medical ethics codes. Dr. Hayes defended his actions, arguing that he was fulfilling his oath to protect life and that his motivations were purely humanitarian. The tension in the work environment became palpable. Meanwhile, he continued to investigate the case, now with even more urgency. He discovered that the family's Threads and Stitches fabric store had been sold by her older sister shortly after the arrest, for a value far below market, to a shell company linked to the powerful real estate mogul Sterling Construction. The money from the sale had mysteriously disappeared, supposedly to cover family debts. During a visit to the county recorder's office to organize the wedding documents, Dr. Hayes found irregularities in the property records of the fabric store. The transfer had been made hastily, with incomplete documentation and witnesses who could not be located afterward. The signatures appeared forged, and the official stamps presented inconsistencies. The woman's sister, desperate upon learning that the wedding was being arranged, intensified her attempts at interference. She approached local authorities, claiming that the doctor was taking advantage of the vulnerability of a helpless prisoner. Her accusations gained traction when local politicians, apparently influenced by economic interests, began to publicly question the doctor's conduct. Ronald Sterling, the real estate mogul, who had until then remained behind the scenes, decided to act more directly. Through intermediaries, he offered Dr. Hayes a substantial sum of money to abandon his investigations and distance himself from the woman. The proposed amount was enough to buy a private practice and guarantee financial stability for life. The doctor's categorical refusal marked an escalation in the conflict. Concurrently, the woman's medical condition continued to deteriorate. The emotional stress and lack of proper care were severely affecting her health. She developed signs of preeclampsia, a condition that could be fatal if not treated properly. Dr. Hayes knew that time was running out quickly. During a particularly difficult early morning, when she suffered another bleeding episode, Dr. Hayes took drastic action. Defying direct orders from the prison administration, he personally transported her to the nearest civilian hospital, assuming full responsibility for the legal consequences of his actions. At the hospital, the tests revealed that the baby was in fetal distress and that an emergency C-section would be necessary within hours. The woman, terrified at the possibility of giving birth in handcuffs and under police custody, begged Dr. Hayes not to abandon her. He promised to remain by her side, no matter what happened. It was at this critical moment that court officers arrived at the hospital institution carrying arrest warrants against Dr. Hayes for disobedience and aiding and abetting an escape. The accusation was that he had violated security protocols by transporting a prisoner without proper authorization. Armed guards positioned themselves in the hospital corridors, transforming the place into an extension of the penitentiary. Dr. Hayes realized that he had reached the point of no return. His courageous actions had triggered a chain reaction that put both his freedom and his career at extreme risk. But as he looked at the defenseless woman on the hospital gurney, about to give birth in adverse conditions, he knew that he had made the right choice, even if it cost him everything he had built in his professional life. The sound of heart monitors echoed through the surgical center as Dr. Hayes remained by the woman's side during the emergency C-section. Even with the guards posted outside the room, he refused to abandon her at the most critical moment. When the baby's cry finally filled the environment, tears streamed down both of their faces. A healthy girl, small but strong, had come into the world amid chaos. In the following hours, while mother and daughter recovered in the intensive care unit, Dr. Hayes was formally detained. The cold handcuffs on his wrists contrasted with the warmth of the satisfaction of having saved 2 lives. He knew he would face serious legal consequences, but he did not regret any of his decisions. During his temporary detention, an unexpected twist changed the course of the entire situation. A young investigative journalist in his 30s had been discreetly following the case for weeks. Intrigued by the inconsistencies in the story of the imprisoned woman, he had conducted his own parallel investigation. The morning after the baby's birth, he published a devastating report that exposed the entire network of corruption. The article revealed compromising documents that directly linked the powerful real estate mogul to the false incrimination scheme. Recorded phone conversations showed him instructing the woman's sister on how to plant false evidence at the Threads and Stitches fabric store. The bank records that the journalist had obtained through confidential sources proved the systematic payments made to silence witnesses and corrupt officials in the prison system. The repercussions of the report were immediate and devastating for those involved in the scheme. The businessman, who had built his fortune through investments in stocks and real estate, saw his companies lose value rapidly. Clients cancelled contracts, investors withdrew capital, and regulatory agencies initiated investigations into his business practices. The woman's sister, confronted with the irrefutable evidence, panicked. She sought a criminal defense attorney and, fearing the serious legal consequences she would face, decided to confess her participation in the scheme in exchange for a plea bargain. During a 5-hour recorded deposition, she revealed shocking details about how she had been coerced and subsequently corrupted to incriminate her own sister. The legal process was reopened with urgency. A new judge, known for his integrity and rigor, took over the case after the previous one was removed for suspicions of bias. The evidence presented by Dr. Hayes, combined with the material collected by the journalist and the testimony of the repentant sister, built a solid case that completely demolished the original accusation. During the trial, which took place when the baby was already 2 months old, Dr. Hayes testified as a key witness. He methodically presented all the evidence he had collected, from the altered medical records to the secret recordings of the bribery attempts. His credibility as a respected medical professional gave substantial weight to his testimony. The courtroom fell silent when the woman, now recovered from childbirth and carrying her daughter in her arms, gave her own testimony. In a firm but emotionally charged voice, she told her true story, how she had discovered irregularities in the accounting of the fabric store, tried to confront her sister about the embezzlements, and how this had triggered the plan to falsely incriminate her. The real estate mogul, present in court accompanied by a team of expensive lawyers, tried to deny all the accusations. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming. When confronted with the recordings of his phone conversations instructing the scheme, his defense completely collapsed. The man who once controlled millions in assets and investments saw his empire crumble before his eyes. The sentence was categorical. The woman was completely acquitted of all charges, with the right to substantial compensation for the moral and material damages suffered. The businessman was sentenced to 10 years in prison for forming a criminal scheme, active corruption, and perjury. His construction company had its activities suspended and was forced to compensate all the victims of the fraudulent schemes. The sister received a lesser sentence due to her cooperation with justice, but was ordered to fully restore the amount stolen from the fabric store, in addition to paying significant compensation to her sister. The money that had been diverted through the shell companies was recovered and returned to the woman, who discovered that she was entitled to a much larger inheritance than she had imagined. 6 months after the trial, life had completely transformed for everyone involved. Dr. Hayes, initially removed from his duties, was reinstated with honors after an internal investigation that proved the correctness of his actions. He received public recognition for his courage and integrity, becoming a symbol of resistance against corruption in the prison health system. The woman, now a free woman with sufficient financial resources to start over, bought a small house on the outskirts of the city. The marriage to Dr. Hayes, initially motivated by legal necessity, had transformed into something much deeper. In the months of struggle together, they developed a connection based on mutual respect, admiration, and gradually, genuine love. The baby grew healthy and happy, surrounded by the affection of both parents. Dr. Hayes had naturally adapted to the paternal role, sharing the responsibilities of child care with dedication and tenderness. During the nights when he rocked the girl to sleep, he reflected on how a situation that began with a medical emergency had turned into the greatest blessing of his life. The former Threads and Stitches fabric store was recovered through legal proceedings and transformed into a small community center that offered vocational training courses for women in vulnerable situations. The woman decided to dedicate part of her time and resources to helping other people who were going through situations similar to the one she had faced. The journalist who had exposed the scheme won national awards for his investigation and continued working to reveal cases of social injustice. His reporting had a lasting impact, leading to reforms in the prison system and greater oversight of companies that operate with government contracts. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, while watching their daughter take her first steps in the garden of their home, Dr. Hayes and the woman talked about the future. They had survived a storm that could have destroyed their lives, but had emerged stronger and more united. The small family that was born from the most adverse circumstances had found peace, justice, and, above all, hope in a new tomorrow. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment on what you thought of my story, giving it a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.